Next, we're excited to welcome Tony Hamelgan. Tony is the CEO of Siemens Digital Industries Software. And over the past couple of years, I've had the chance to get to know the Siemens business more closely and really gotten to see how software is being instilled into the operational technology space and being used to drive businesses forward, manufacturing forward, using data.
Yeah, and the key in the IoT world, Daniel, is both you and I have researched, really comes down to the ability to marry that IT world with that OT world and make a business difference. And that's really what I'm excited to hear about. So with that, let's turn it over to Tony.
So to start things off today, I'd like to welcome Tony Hamelgan, President and CEO of Siemens Digital Industries Software. Tony, it's great to speak with you. How are things?
Yeah, things are okay. We're working well and our business is running a different way, but we're working okay.
Now, last time we met, of course, we were on stage in Detroit, a big live event. Today, we're chatting remotely for so many obvious reasons. So how has the current state of the world changed business for you and your customers?
Well, I suppose we're like everybody else, right? You've got a new way of working. You work from home. You find different ways to collaborate. So yeah, it's different for us, but we've always been a company that's collaborated well together, both internally and with our customers through the technology available. But if you think about it, if you look back over history, really, there's always a disaster or crisis around the corner that companies have to deal with. That crisis could be the competition catching up. It could be trade barriers that implode a market for you, right? It could be problems that are associated with wars or natural disasters. Any of these things can happen, and you've got to respond. However, what we see many times through this process is that this is what really drives innovation, right? If you think about it, go back to World War II. The innovation that was driven during that period of time was everything from jet engines to radar to pressurized cabins. Apollo 13, when Apollo 13 had the oxygen tank explode, NASA had to rewrite all the procedures to get the crew home. They did that by leveraging their version of a digital twin, I suppose, at that time. And that was a simulator to test the procedures so they could run through those tests and then upload them back to the crew for a safe re-entry. We think about Haiti and the earthquake that happened 10 years ago. At that time, technologists created apps to track the incident so they can help drive search and rescue operations. Right? And again, that was 10 years ago. Think about how you could potentially build those apps today versus where you were 10 years ago. For that matter, imagine the differences in the digital twin simulator for the Apollo 13 approach 50 years later. Imagine what you could be doing today versus then. And then let's think about vaccine development. You know, traditionally, this process has been measured in years, if not decades. Right? And over the past 10 years, there's been a lot of new powerful approaches to deal with this. Part of that is developing what they call vaccine platforms. And the advantage of this platform is it's kind of a building block, or a set of building blocks that allow you to go much quicker in building vaccines. It greatly reduces the time it takes to get a vaccine to market. So think about what's occurring today in our world. This biotech company, Moderna, they created a vaccine in 42 days. Think about that, 42 days. Versus something that was taking years. Now, we still have to go through the test and validation and so forth. But still, the initial build of that in 42 days. They did this because they're leveraging kind of this digital environment that allows them to respond rapidly to the challenge they face. So now let's think about our customers. Right? Our customers, whether they're large or small, they're very resilient in what they do. During this crisis, many of them had to respond or have responded. And because of the agility of their digital enterprise, they were able to do something very rapidly in their business environment. I'll give some examples of that as we go forward. But if you really think about it, COVID-19 may be the ultimate catalyst that pushes humans forward to really completely embrace digital transformation. I'll give an example. VinFast. I've spoken about VinFast before. This is our customer that is building an automobile. And they were able to stand up a factory in 21 months. 21 months from nothing to a factory to start producing automobiles. They did this because they have a digital enterprise. Now, what they decided was, in this time of need, they wanted to help out as well. And so what they did was they decided they wanted to start manufacturing ventilators. In fact, they wanted to produce 55,000 ventilators a month to help people affected by the virus. You can imagine the movement from autos to ventilators is much easier said than done, right? So what they did was they licensed Medtronic for the design of the ventilator. So in other words, they had a design they could use, but they came to us and said, look, we've got the design. How do we build it? How do we go fast? And so we talked to them about the digital twin approach for manufacturing. So in just 3 weeks from researching ventilators, starting from scratch, VinFast engineers successfully succeeded in improving and mastering ventilator production. In 3 weeks, quite impressive because of the digital enterprise that David created. Another example, I don't know about you, but I still can't find hand sanitizer or disinfectant very easily in today's world. SPB is a healthcare, beauty, and home care company. And imagine if you were running their business. You're running the business and suddenly disinfectants become critical overnight. So you got to adjust. And think about it, you're trying to adjust your production and the majority of your people are working from home. How do you do this? How'd they respond? Well, they came to us and they said, look, let's look at your manufacturing execution software. How do we double up the production of the cleaning and disinfectants, at the same time maybe ramp down other production lines? I think this is a great example of flexible manufacturing and design optimization, and one of the ways our customers is adjusting. Earlier I mentioned these technologists that were working in Haiti to build these apps that track and help with rescue operations. And I said, imagine if they had the low-code capabilities of Mendix today, or current technology, right? Well, this is exactly what the city of San Antonio, Texas did. They had to build and deploy an app to speed and help with the housing assistance programs they put in place, where people are affected by the virus. So what they wanted to do is very quickly put together an application that helps them address the huge amount of, you think about it, you got rental and mortgage, utility, relocation assistance, all of these types of things. They had to build this quickly to be able to distribute to over 25 million people in the city to help with this problem. And think about it, they didn't have to be technologists necessarily, because Mendix was built for citizens developers. It means people with any skill level can start developing applications. And it changes the way you think about resolving and dealing with the world's problems that are out there today.
Tony, listening to those amazing stories, it just strikes me how resourceful and resilient humans are when they have to deal with the unexpected. It's great. It's kind of inspiring. So let me ask you this question. What do you think that the commonality is between those companies that have been able to transform so rapidly and so effectively?
Yeah, it's quite interesting, really. If you go back and you think about what I mentioned before about the development of vaccines today and the advancements there, it was this idea of this platform that allows them to go much quicker and be able to react with the speed and agility needed in a digital way. So to me, if you really think about it, if you think about what companies have in common when you want to respond, if you really think about what's there, it's a digital mindset, right? It's thinking in a digital way, right? And so we think about what we offer to our customers. We have this integrated portfolio of our software, our services, and our app development. It's part of this portfolio under Accelerator that helps our customers think in a digital way. So just like the vaccines that were developed 10 years ago and the process they used then versus today, think about the progress we've made with our customers over the last 10 years. It's truly remarkable when you think about what you can do with the digital enterprise and suite of solutions that we provide to our customers. And again, the Accelerator portfolio, it helps us create that digital mindset. It speeds the digital transformation and unlocks, really, if you think about it, unlocks a whole industrial network effect of how you link with your partners, your customers, and so forth. And then what we do with Accelerator is start to blur the boundaries between traditional standalone engineering software. I've spoken before about this. If you want to have a digital representation of your solution, your product, your manufacturing process, you really got to blur the boundaries between electrical design, mechanical, and software and bring that all together into one kind of common approach. And that's how we do this. We help companies large or small really remain resilient and transfer them into digital enterprises. Again, it doesn't matter the size, large or small, you can make that happen. So let's talk a little bit about how that works. Our strategies really continues to be built on 3 business imperatives. I've mentioned many times the digital twin. It's got to cover the entire product and production life cycle. It's got to have a closed loop process. Closed loop because you really want to learn from what's happening. You want to take the data, you want to feed it back, and continuously refine and improve either design or the manufacturing process that you have. We've talked about a personalized approach. Really, it's saying we provide many paths. There is no single approach to where we want to go with how we work. And our customers want to work at their own pace, and we want to support them in the way that they want to work. We do this because we really believe, I've said this before as well, we believe people in the future will not only be the users of the technology, not only the users, but increasingly they'll be the shapers and even the developers of it because they want to personalize it the way they want to work. And that's a part of what we provide in our personalized approach. And then finally, the open ecosystem. We help create this industrial network effect where you link your suppliers, your customers, your partners, your distributors. You all collaborate in an ecosystem. And it gives you this agility and flexibility that you need to have. You can't do that in a proprietary closed business model. You have to have an open approach to be able to do that. And it's a big part of our strategy. So now let's think about, again, how this might work. Picture yourself being asked to suddenly change your production mix, right? You need to shut down certain products, ramp up others. Very similar to the example I just used for SPB, right? You've got to make that change. And now think about it. I've got to make that change, but I have to restart my manufacturing process. I've got to restart manufacturing, but now I've got a new set of rules. I got to think about physical distancing requirements because I got to make sure my employees are going to be safe when they're working, right? And then that process is complicated because I've got new production lines and things that I'm ramping up. Remember, I'm phasing things out. I'm ramping up new areas. So I've got new factory layouts that I have to work with while I'm figuring out how to keep people safe. And then to make it even harder, again, I'm doing it with most of my employees working from home. So you can see how complicated this can get when you have to respond quickly. So we said many times the value of the digital twin, the value is how closely you link the physical to the virtual world. And we said before, not all digital twins are created equal. Can you get the feedback loop from IoT? Can you make the changes? Can you continue to refine? Can you act upon this feedback loop? Can you make meaningful changes, both upstream and downstream, for the processes that you're in at the time? So we believe this is not an option. It's essential to really deal with the complexities that I just spoke about in the new way of working. So I'll give you an example of this with a manufacturing line that we're restarting. And we want to do this, we want to keep people safe at the same time. You can see as we show this manufacturing line, we're measuring the distances between the workers. We want to provide a real-time feedback to employees, telling them when they're too close to the next person, the next employee, identifying it as a risk scenario. So for example, if you want to maintain that 6 feet apart from each other, we're gonna tell you, hey, are you too close? Right? Your badge will display a warning saying, hey, you need to change your situation to be able to move. And then what we do as well is we can collect all this data. We can identify hotspots. We can start identifying where the risk scenarios are. And then we can have these situations become actionable because of the digital twin. We can isolate, optimize for safety and productivity. We can validate a redesign of the entire operation before we have to do any kind of costly physical changes. So you can see with the digital environment, I'm able to do all these things no matter where people are working from home or whatever they're doing. And I can start optimizing and deal with some of the situations, for example, with the COVID crisis where I have to maintain safety for my employees. The second part of our strategy is all about this personalized, adaptable, and modern solutions for our customers, right? So think about Land O'Lakes. Here's a company that, like many companies, have decided they needed to complete more projects, more IT solutions, but they had to reduce their costs at the same time. And in their case, they also wanted to bring a lot of this innovation back in-house. You remember what I said earlier. We believe employees of the future will not only be the users of the technology, but also the shapers and even the developers of it. Well, this is what Mendix provides. It's a cloud-native, enterprise-grade security, full application lifecycle management platform. And what Land O'Lakes is doing is they're looking at their 350,000 farmers, distributors, retailers, wholesalers, and they wanted a personalized online portal approach to support all of them. They did this to really achieve the goals they needed for sustainability, for education, for supply chain management, all of those things done in a low-code way. And then finally, let's talk about the benefits of a flexible open ecosystem. As I mentioned before, we've got these customers that are out there today producing traditional end products, and now they're trying to help out with COVID. They want to build ventilators, they want to build face shields, they want to address the pandemic in ways they can help, and they want to respond quickly. One of those areas you've read a lot about in the press is additive manufacturing, using additive manufacturing to produce different types of products very quickly. But if you think about it, if you're just going to jump in and do that fresh and new from scratch as a company, what about the supply chain that's needed? What about the design expertise you need? Something you've never done before. How do you get there quickly? Right? You need an ecosystem because you can't do it all by yourself. And this is exactly what our additive manufacturing network is all about. We've talked about it before. But I'll tell you what a difference it can make when you need to respond to a crisis with rapid innovation. Through this crisis, we've had over 70 purchasing organizations contact us and get involved and want to be part of the additive manufacturing network. We've got 120 suppliers connect. And we've had 40 additive manufacturing knowledge experts join the ecosystem just to be able to help our customers by providing this idea of a network to be able to address the human crisis that all of us are facing. Speaking of a digital mindset, we're all having to work differently. Visualize being a small company with a global footprint. Think about it. You got your design maybe in Las Vegas, you got design in Philippines, you got manufacturing in Taiwan, and you got customers all over the world. And your task is design and build the next generation product. And you got to do this again without allowing your people to travel. You've got isolation guidelines, you got travel restrictions, all these things. How do you do that? Well, welcome to the challenge that our customer Roark faced. Small startup, they make mountain bikes. Recently, they switched to solid edge. But they also needed a rapid, agile, cost-effective way to collaborate. If you think about it, don't we all? We want an easy way to do this, right? This is why I'm excited to talk about two new products we recently launched. First one is Teamcenter Share. The second is Teamcenter X. Teamcenter Share. If you're used to using kind of a global storage solution, network hard drives, these types of things, we think we've got a better answer. Teamcenter Share is a cloud-based, design-centric project collaboration solution with an engineering focus. So it's not just this generic thing. It's a design-centered, engineering-focused approach of sharing data. The CEO of Roark is already using this. I'll talk about this in an upcoming session during this event. And then we also have Teamcenter X. Teamcenter X is a cloud-based, instant-on PLM service for companies to address all kinds of engineering business needs. It's really the traditional task of Teamcenter as we know it today. It's design collaboration, document management, bill of material management, requirements management, all of these things across the life cycle. This gives our customers the stability and robustness of Teamcenter, but at a new level of flexibility sitting on the cloud. You think about it, it also creates different opportunities for us. For example, we think about solutions designed specifically for, let's say, automotive line builders, where you want to link the OEM to the tier one to small SMBs. SMBs meaning small, medium-sized businesses that we traditionally could not get to because of either cost or infrastructure, those types of things. We can link the OEM to the tier one to the SMB, and we can do this in an affordable solution, and we manage it all for them, specifically focused on the problem of doing line building.
Fascinating insight into the commonalities of transformation, but there are still so many challenges out there to be dealt with. What do you think that means for everyone watching today?
Well, yeah, I think you're right. I mean, look, this goes way beyond the current crisis, right? It's, as I said earlier, our customers are constantly facing challenges and crises that are upon them. And they have to address many global challenges. I mean, just take, for example, lower emissions, right? It's a big challenge a lot of our customers are having to address. We have an example here of a small company, Buy Aerospace. They're taking on a big challenge. They want to address this emission problem, and they're doing it by creating an electric airplane used for general aviation. A small company, you really can't, you can't afford to make a lot of mistakes. You can't afford to build a lot of prototypes. You got to get it right the first time, and you got to do a lot of work virtually. So think about the engineers working on this plane. Here they are working on it, and they find they got a problem with the stability of the plane. And it's really because they found in the ingress for the pilot, they had to stretch it a little bit. They had to stretch it a few more inches and stretch the airframe. The problem with that is when you do that, you're touching every part of the plane, really. It's got to be redesigned, relocated, all these types of things. So it's a tough job. It's a tough job because you've got to deal with modeling issues. You've got manufacturability concerns. We got mechanical properties to deal with, environmental requirements, analytics, analysis for static loads, buckling, computational fluid dynamics, all of these things that are needed to redesign this plane. But then also you got to do the creation of the test plans and the reports for certification, because if you don't have that, you can't get this plane into production. So it's a tough challenge. And then magnify it because you've got to do this work from home, right? Because most of your employees are working from home during this crisis to make this change. Well, that's exactly what the engineers at Bio Aerospace did. And they did this in 7 days. Think about all those changes and validated in 7 days. This is what we mean when we say not all digital twins are created equal, right? Because you've got to be able to adapt and adjust, and you've got to have a comprehensive digital twin that allows you to do this. The Bio Aerospace engineers will talk about this a little bit later during our event. Another big challenge that parents face every day, at least they will once their kids start going back to school, hopefully soon. But one of the challenges you face there is that while the children are waiting on the buses, they're idling, they're sitting along busy roadways or whatever, they're very vulnerable to the harmful effects of diesel emissions. And frankly, you can have that effect even while you're sitting on the bus. So Lion Electric, a small company in Canada, they're trying to address this by building an electric bus. And think about the challenges they have. They've got to respond to, battery pack layout, battery sizing, battery aging, performance, all those things, as well as designing the mechanical characteristics of what this bus is all about. And so they came to us and they said, look, we would like to have some help here. And what they wanted to do was leverage SimCenter, because SimCenter can simulate the performance of the electrical system in the vehicle and optimize its range. They can also use it to deal with their clients to do studies on runs and things like this to make sure they're optimized for the usage and the approach of how this bus will be used in real life. And so not only are they addressing a global challenge, but they're also lowering the R&D cost at the same time, and frankly, giving parents peace of mind as they're doing this design. But it's not just about planes, cars, buses. We need to help lower emissions in many different places. You may not know this, but 90% of the global trade is carried by ships, 90%. So it's 938 million tons of CO2 that are produced doing this. And the environmental regulations that are coming upon this industry says you got to reduce that by 30%. So that's a tough challenge for a lot of companies. And our customer, Wärtsilä, had to embrace this challenge. So what did they do? They created a digital enterprise. They did this so that they could ensure fuel-efficient propeller design. They wanted to redesign the hull of the ship to meet the new emission requirements that are there. And then finally, they wanted to engineer the most clean diesel engine possible for their ships and leveraging and reducing CO2. They did this by using our accelerator portfolio to create the best possible product and perform the task that we've laid out for this challenge. And think about how different this is today versus 20 years ago. They couldn't even dream about doing this 20 years and responding this quickly. But these world challenges we talk about, there's other challenges. There's the challenge of understanding the universe. In this case, we're talking about the James Webb Space Telescope. This is an infrared observatory, and it's really set up to complement and extend the discoveries of the Hubble Space Telescope. It'll be the largest, most powerful, most complex telescope ever launched into space. And our software is a big part of this. It's instrumental in bringing this telescope to life. And it's everything from the lowest level of the integrated circuit design to electrical systems design to the overall multi-physics simulations that you have to do, and then using Teamcenter to bring all these engineering teams together around the world to be able to collaborate and work on this together. It's a bit unique what we're bringing here. We're bringing all of this solution together, again, from integrated circuit to mechanical design to simulation, all of this together for our customer into our accelerator portfolio. Finally, on a lighter note, even during this time of crisis, we want to celebrate some of the small moments in life. And we're working with a customer right now. It's a major champagne maker to help them achieve constant quality. They need to get the bubbles just right because you got different fermentation tanks, you got different variability of grapes, these types of things. And they're using our simulation software to predict the target CO2, meaning they want to keep it right in the proper band. If you really think about it, I suppose improper bubbles for champagne, that really could be the next crisis we have to worry about.
If champagne bubbles were my biggest worry, I'd be very, very happy. You mentioned communities coming together, which I think is fascinating. Industry lines being blurred, unconventional partnerships. This is happening everywhere. How do you see that trend continuing?
Well, I mean, you think about it in our case, I mean, there's partners that traditionally might have been competitive, that created boundaries for us, and we're thinking about it in different ways now. These are kind of, you may call unconventional partners compared to where we were before. And we're doing this primarily to meet the needs of our customers. We're listening to what they say, and they're telling us what they need, and we've tried to respond appropriately. A great example of this is what I spoke to you about last year with IBM. We gave the early indication of what we're doing with IBM and how we're working together, and I think it's time to give you an update as to where we are. And if you remember, we talked about IBM. It's a solution really targeting these owner-operators that allow us to improve aftermarket services. It's looking how we take the industry-leading capabilities of enterprise asset management from IBM and couple it together with our product lifecycle management capabilities here at Siemens. So really what it is, it's a closed-loop process for service lifecycle management. It'll span design, service planning, maintenance, reliability, engineering, all of this, and bringing it together in a closed-loop process. And what we're happy to say today is we announced it last year. We now have it delivered. It's available. It's generally available to the market, and we're getting a great response out of the customers that we've shared this with so far. So I have to say it's quite interesting and a lot more fun to work with IBM as a partner rather than a competitor. You may remember at the beginning of the presentation, I spoke about these engineers at NASA with Apollo 13, right, and how they would respond. And I said, gosh, could you imagine doing that today, 50 years later, with a current modern digital twin, and how that might change the way you think about it, how you would address the problem that's there? Well, that's exactly what happened with SpaceX, one of our customers. If you watched it just a few weeks ago, it was very uplifting to see this achievement, right? Especially during this time of uncertainty. We've been there with SpaceX from the very start, right? Helping them with this process. And it's exciting for us anytime we deal with customers when they achieve this level of success, because it's really confirming what we're about, and that is bringing real value to our customers and helping them achieve the challenges that we spoke about through much of the discussion today. Like all the stories I've talked about today, it really comes down to people having a digital mindset and way of working. People are thinking differently about innovation and how they work. They're taking full advantage of what we have with the accelerator portfolio. And really, if you think about it, that's what human-centered innovation is all about and what will move us into the future.
Tony, thank you so much for all of that vision, that insight into human-centered innovation. And we're going to see you again tomorrow.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.